What would you do if a little girl showed up in your life claiming her parents were murdered and the man hunting her was her own uncle, a billionaire? No one dared to question. This isn't a movie plot. This is what happened to Daniel Carter, a fallen Wall Street titan who had already lost everything: his fortune, his fiancée, even his identity. One rainy night in Chicago, he stumbled upon a trembling homeless girl hiding under wet cardboard. What he didn't know was that the girl Lily was actually Valentina Thompson, the missing heir to a vast corporate empire and the only witness to a double homicide. What started as a moment of compassion quickly spiraled into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Daniel wasn't just offering her shelter, he was stepping into a war he didn't even know existed, because someone very powerful had spent months trying to erase this girl from the world. And now she was standing in Daniel's living room. Stay with us, because what happens next will shatter everything you think you know about loyalty, justice, and what it really means to protect someone. And trust us, the moment they open that safety deposit box, everything changes. The storm hit Chicago with an unforgiving rage, the kind of rain that slams against pavement like it's angry at the world. Daniel Carter trudged through the soaked streets of Logan Square, the collar of his once expensive coat turned up in vain. A year ago, he would have watched this rain from the penthouse window of his luxury condo in Lincoln Park with a glass of Bordeaux in hand. Now he was just another man blending into the shadows, stripped of his empire, his fiancée, and his reputation. Once hailed as a financial genius, Daniel had lost it all in a matter of months: an economic collapse, betrayal from the board, and Rebecca walking out with his company's cash and his pride. Now he rented a 2-bedroom walk-up he never would have stepped foot in before eating instant noodles while job offers evaporated. As thunder cracked above, he ducked under the closed awning of a rundown bookstore. That's when he saw her. A small figure curled beneath damp cardboard boxes in the narrow alley next to the shop. She couldn't have been older than 10. Her hair was tangled, her clothes oversized, and her arms wrapped tightly around her knees as she trembled from the cold. Her eyes, vivid green and haunting, met his for a split second before she looked away. He should have kept walking. He almost did. But there was something in that glance. Something Daniel recognized. Not poverty, not just fear. Something deeper. A loneliness so profound it mirrored his own. "Hey, sweetheart," he said gently, stepping closer, the puddles slapping against his shoes. "Are you okay?" She flinched but didn't answer. "It's freezing out here. Do you have anywhere to go?" A tiny shake of the head, barely noticeable. "My place is a block away," he continued. "It's not much, but it's warm and dry. You hungry?" Her eyes flickered at the mention of food, still guarded, but a flicker of hope ignited. "I'm not gonna hurt you. I've got some spaghetti. And maybe hot chocolate. You like chocolate?" The girl hesitated. Then after a long pause, she gave a small nod. Daniel took off his coat and gently draped it over her small frame. It swallowed her, but she clutched it like a shield. "What's your name?" he asked as they started walking. "Lily," she said softly, the first word she'd spoken. "That's a beautiful name. I'm Daniel." The walk home was quiet. She stayed 2 steps behind like a stray cat, unsure if it had really been welcomed. Inside the apartment, she looked around wide-eyed as if she'd never seen a home before. Daniel quickly heated up dinner while she perched silently on the edge of the couch. When he handed her a plate of steaming spaghetti, she devoured it like someone who hadn't eaten in days. He noticed something odd then. As she lifted her fork, a tiny silver chain peeked out from beneath her sweatshirt. Hanging from it was a delicate key, ornate, old-fashioned, and clearly not a toy. "That's a pretty necklace," he said casually. She clutched it and tucked it quickly out of sight. He didn't press. That night he gave her the couch and an extra blanket. She curled into herself, still wary. But Daniel, perhaps for the first time since losing everything, felt something other than numbness. For the first time in months, he felt human. He fell asleep wondering who this girl really was. At dawn, he woke to find her sitting at the window, wide awake. "Didn't sleep?" he asked gently. "I always wake up early," she murmured, "in case I have to run." Those words sat heavy in his chest. A child shouldn't speak like that. He made coffee for himself and hot chocolate for her. As they sat together, he watched her more closely. She held the mug with practiced elegance. Her vocabulary, though limited, was articulate. There was something off, not in a dangerous way. Just, she wasn't what she seemed. "Lily," he asked carefully, "how long have you been on the streets?" "A few weeks, maybe a month." "And before that?" The question lingered. She didn't answer. Instead, she fingered the chain around her neck nervously. In the following days, a strange routine formed. Daniel searched for work or dealt with bankruptcy paperwork while Lily stayed behind. He bought her clean clothes and a school notebook, nudging her toward normalcy. But one night he woke to the sound of muffled crying. She was on the couch, soaked in sweat, whispering things he couldn't make out. He sat on the floor nearby. "You're safe here," he whispered. "I shouldn't be here," she choked out. "He's looking for me." "Who?" She stared at him for a long, long moment, then finally whispered, "My uncle, Victor Thompson." Daniel's heart stopped. He killed my parents." The air seemed to vanish from the room. Daniel swallowed hard. "Lily, what's your real name?" "Valentina," she whispered, reaching for her necklace. "Valentina Thompson." The name hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. "Thompson as in Thompson Global Holdings." She nodded. "My parents owned the company. Victor always wanted it." Daniel stared at the small girl, his mind spinning. He had once done consulting work with Thompson Global. He remembered hearing about a tragic accident at one of their factories, but there had been no mention of a daughter. No heir. She continued, voice trembling. "Victor said it was Dad's fault, but I heard him. He was on the phone that night, said it was easier than he thought, that Mom would be next." Daniel felt cold rage rise inside him. This wasn't just a sad backstory. This was a cover-up. A child on the run from a man powerful enough to erase her identity from the public eye. "I shouldn't have come here," she said again, shrinking into herself. "No," he said, voice firm. "You did the right thing, and now we're going to figure out what that key opens. And we're going to make him pay." But neither of them knew they were already being watched. "We're so sorry to pause the story right here, but what do you think Victor Thompson will do next? Do you think Daniel can protect Valentina from someone with that much power? If this story moved you so far, don't forget to like and share it. It truly helps us bring more stories like this to life." Daniel didn't sleep a second that night. He sat in the kitchen, the lights off, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall, and the quiet, even breaths of the little girl sleeping on his couch. But now he knew she wasn't just a lost child. She was Valentina Thompson, heir to one of the largest private corporations in the country, and someone had murdered her parents to take it all. Victor Thompson. Daniel had seen power games in corporate boardrooms. He'd witnessed hostile takeovers and brutal betrayals. But this was something else. This was a man who was willing to kill his own brother and sister-in-law, and now he wanted Valentina out of the picture. Daniel needed help, and he knew only one person who could provide it. By sunrise, he was dialing the number of Dr. Rachel Bennett, a trauma psychologist and child protection advocate. She'd been his friend in college back when things were simpler. She picked up after the second ring. "Daniel, it's been months." I don't have time. I need to meet. It's about a girl. She's in danger." Her voice dropped. "Bring her to my office at noon." When they arrived later that day, Valentina clung to Daniel's side, her green eyes darting nervously around the unfamiliar space. Rachel greeted her with warmth and calm professionalism, but Valentina stayed silent, holding that old-fashioned key tightly in her fist like a lifeline. Daniel explained everything: the murder, the forged guardianship papers, the way Valentina had escaped. Rachel listened in silence, then said, "I'll run her name through the system." Minutes passed. Tension thickened in the room. "No missing child report," Rachel murmured, frowning. "But there is a record. According to the system, Valentina Thompson is under temporary custody of her legal guardian, Victor Thompson." Valentina's face went pale. "That's not true," she whispered. "I've never lived with him." "Which means he's falsified legal records," Rachel said, her voice tight. "He's already erased you once, Valentina. He's trying to control the system from the inside." Daniel leaned forward. "Then we go around the system." Rachel nodded slowly. "We need proof, real proof. If that key leads to something, we follow it now." They moved quickly. Daniel had one connection left at First Federal Bank of Chicago. An old business associate still worked there as a branch manager. By mid-afternoon, they were in the secure vault standing in front of a row of metal boxes. The key fit perfectly into one of them. Inside, a flash drive, legal documents, and a sealed envelope with handwriting that made Valentina's hands tremble. For my beloved daughter, Valentina. As Daniel scanned the documents, his stomach dropped. It was all there, contracts with forged signatures, backdoor wire transfers, internal memos from Victor manipulating safety procedures. The flash drive held something even more damning, a recorded conversation. Victor's voice was crystal clear. Once Robert's out of the way, Elena's just a matter of time. And the girl, she'll disappear. Kids are fragile. One slip and no one will question it. Daniel stared at the screen in horror. Valentina was crying now, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. "You were right to run," he whispered. They returned home in silence, taking back streets, changing buses 3 times. But as Daniel inserted his key into the door of the apartment, his blood ran cold. It was already unlocked. He shoved Valentina behind him. The apartment was trashed, drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, and on the kitchen counter, Rebecca's phone. Daniel picked it up. A new message appeared. "If you ever want to see your girlfriend again, bring the flash drive and the girl to Warehouse 47 Navy Pier. Midnight, come alone." Daniel's hands shook. Not from fear, this was fury. They had taken Rebecca. For all her flaws, she didn't deserve this. Valentina stared at him, eyes wide. "It's my fault," no, Daniel said firmly. "This is Victor's fault, and I'm not letting him hurt anyone else." His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. He answered. A cold voice. "Daniel Carter. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Let her go, Victor. Now. Let's not be hasty. I'll make this simple. Bring my niece and the evidence to me tonight. No police, or Rebecca dies. You won't get away with this. I already have. You're the one harboring a runaway. The law's on my side, Daniel. Don't be stupid." The call ended. Daniel stood frozen. He couldn't call the police. Victor had corrupted the system already, and now the clock was ticking. Valentina touched his arm. "Maybe I should go back," she whispered. "I don't want anyone else to get hurt." Daniel crouched in front of her. "No, you are not going back. You survived for a reason, and that reason is to make him pay." Suddenly, Valentina looked up, something dawning in her expression. "Estela," she whispered. "My mom's assistant. She knew everything. She might still have proof. She used to live near our old headquarters downtown." Daniel's heart surged. "Then we find her." Time was running out. Victor was watching. Rebecca's life hung in the balance. But maybe, just maybe, they had one final move. We hate to interrupt right here, but what do you think Daniel's next move should be? Should he risk the exchange or try to expose Victor before midnight? Would you trust a child's memory to lead you to the only person who can help? If you're feeling the tension and rooting for justice, please like this video and share it, so more people can experience this powerful story. Right now, time was running out. The night air in Chicago was thick with tension, as if the city itself knew something dangerous was about to unfold. Daniel and Valentina stood outside a modest apartment building near the old Thomson Global headquarters. The sky above rumbled clouds heavy with rain. They had one last hope: Estela Collins, Elena Thompson's former personal assistant. If she still had the documents Elena once entrusted to her, they might have enough to finally bring Victor down. They rang the buzzer. Seconds stretched. Then the door creaked open. A silver-haired woman in her 50s stood in the doorway, her eyes widening the moment she saw Valentina. "Dear God, Valentina," she whispered, bringing her hand to her chest. "We were told you were in a hospital. Victor said you were too ill to see visitors." "He lied," Daniel said flatly, "and he murdered her parents." Estela's face hardened. "I always knew something was wrong." "Come in." Inside her apartment, cozy, lined with old books and framed photos, Daniel explained everything. Valentina sat close, clutching the flash drive. When they showed Estela the letter and the recordings, she grew pale, then furious. "He's worse than I thought," she muttered. "Before the accident, your father gave me a box of documents. Told me if anything happened to him, I should protect them." She opened a closet, pulled out an old shoebox, and handed it to Daniel. Inside were forged contracts, records of offshore accounts, and handwritten notes detailing Victor's scheme. "This is it," Daniel whispered. "Enough to bury him. But we don't have time for a courtroom," Estella said. "You said he's got your girlfriend." Daniel nodded grimly. Midnight. Warehouse 47. "He wants Valentina and the evidence." Estella looked at Valentina. "Are you scared, honey?" The girl looked up, eyes steady. "I am, but I'm not running anymore." Back at home, Daniel laid out his plan. He'd go to the warehouse with a fake flash drive, while Valentina stayed under protective custody with Dr. Rachel Bennett. But Valentina refused. "You're going in there alone." "What if something happens to you?" she said. "You saved me, Daniel. Let me help save you." That night, under the rain-soaked city lights, Daniel arrived at the Navy Pier warehouse just before midnight. The air was cold, the kind of cold that numbs your hands and burns your lungs. Inside the dim building, he saw her Rebecca tied to a chair, bruised but alive. Victor stepped out from the shadows. "Right on time," he said with a smirk. "Where's the girl?" "She's safe," Daniel replied. "And you're never going to touch her again." Victor laughed. "So you came alone. Foolish but brave. Hand over the drive." Daniel pulled a phone from his pocket instead. "Before I do, there's something you should see. You're live, Victor. 50 people are watching, including federal agents." Victor's smile faded. "You're bluffing. Try me," Daniel said calmly. "Go ahead, threaten her again. They'll hear it all." Suddenly, a voice rang out from the far side of the room. Uncle Victor. Victor turned. It was Valentina. She stepped into view, eyes blazing. "Stop hurting people. You lied. You killed them." Victor moved toward her enraged, but in that split second of distraction, Daniel tackled him to the ground. The gun Victor had been hiding clattered across the floor. They wrestled, fists flying until a loud crack. Victor collapsed. Valentina stood behind him holding a metal pipe, her hands trembling. Daniel took her hand gently. "You saved us all." Moments later, flashing red and blue lights filled the building. Estella had tipped off the authorities once the livestream started. Officers flooded the warehouse, arresting Victor and his men. The evidence was collected, the recordings played. Victor Thompson was finished. Days passed in a blur. Victor was charged with multiple counts of murder, fraud, kidnapping, and conspiracy. The truth about Thompson Global Holdings exploded across the media. But Daniel's mind was on one thing: Valentina. Weeks later, in a quiet courtroom, a social worker named Mrs. Reynolds reviewed the final documents. "Mr. Carter," she said, "Elena Thompson named you as potential guardian in a revised testament. After reviewing the case, we've decided to grant you permanent custody of Valentina." Daniel looked at the girl beside him, no longer trembling, no longer hiding. She smiled up at him with the light of someone who'd survived hell and found her way back to life. "Can I call you Dad now?" she whispered. He smiled, tears brimming in his eyes. "You've always been my daughter." 6 months later, Thompson Global was reborn under a new name, Alankar and Light Foundation. With Daniel's financial skills and Valentina's vision, they turned the company into a force for good funding, programs for orphan children and families in crisis. One day, while reviewing blueprints for a new children's center, Valentina looked up and asked softly, "Do you think my parents would be proud of me?" Daniel paused, then answered, "I know they would. Because I am. Every single day." Her green eyes sparkled. "Then let's keep building, Dad. For them. For every kid out there who still needs saving." And as the Chicago sun rose over their new home, 2 broken souls who once had nothing were now living the life neither of them thought they'd ever deserve. A life of second chances. A life filled with purpose. A family built not by blood but by choice. Now we turn it over to you. Do you believe Daniel made the right choice bringing Valentina into his life? If you had the power to expose someone like Victor, would you risk everything for justice? How do you feel about the story's ending? Comment number 3 if you loved it. Number 1 if it didn't meet your expectations, or number 2 if you found it just okay. Tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to know what country you're in. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to send some love and share it with someone who believes in second chances.